And we're live.
We are indeed live. Saints fans, welcome back to another edition of Saints TV Live. I hope you're all well. I hope you had a great weekend. St Kilda playing West Coast on Sunday Arvo 4:40. The graveyard time slot, as some might call it. Hopefully, whatever you saw in St Kilda's performance, hope it didn't affect your weekend too much. Max, how are you?
Yeah, doing all right. Saints win's a Saints win. I think that's going to be the underlying message of today. But regardless, frustrating game on the weekend. We got the win. Did have a great weekend though. Had my sister turned 18 on Saturday, so we went out with the family for brunch and did all that. And also got to watch the Essendon Port Adelaide game, which was unreal. So whoever missed out on watching that, that was probably the game of the week, probably even game of the season to date.
Yeah, nice. I did catch the final 4 or 5 minutes of that, and that was a very good game to watch. Certainly a lot of twists and turns, and definitely good for our finals chances that Port Adelaide beat Essendon. No matter what you think of Port Adelaide, and no matter what you think of Essendon, it's pretty inarguable that was good for our finals chances that Port Adelaide won and Essendon lost. It's funny that you mentioned that your sister turned 18 because my sister turned 17 today. So, happy. I'm sure everyone in the comments will wish both of our sisters a happy birthday. So done some stuff for that, and I was actually in Perth for the game and for the weekend. Saw some friends from uni, went over with mum, and it was a terrific experience to be in Perth, apart from the game, which was less than terrific. But a Saints win's a Saints win, like you said, Max.
Yeah, exactly right. I just want to pull up this comment because Paul is pretty much spot on the money. Bit of a long one. I'll sum it down. If we're top four, if we're a chance of finishing top four this week, we beat Melbourne. Does Cordy come in for battle? Does Campbell get a run in the ruck? All that we do have in our notes and are planning to talk about this week or tonight's on this week's show. So, Paul, you're on top of it already, and you've read Jordan and I's mind before even coming on the show.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, Max, in notes. Clearly, we'd all just make this up on the spot, and we don't do any preparation whatsoever. We're certainly not reading off anything. We're clearly on the fly thinkers. So, don't be fooled by what Max is saying. Just a reminder to check out the Saints TV podcast. Great episode yesterday. Joycey's had his wisdom teeth out, so they had the lovely Sarah fill in, and she was very good. Don't you agree, Max? Have you listened to it this week?
Yeah, I have had a listen. It was refreshing to hear another voice on the podcast, and I think Sarah stepped in, did an awesome job. Reminds me very similar to someone like a Daisy Pearce and how she analyzes the game, and she's very articulate with her words, and she knows what she's talking about. So if you haven't listened to the podcast, special guest Sarah, who does the AFL or Saints TV AFLW reviews. Awesome to listen to.
Yep, and remember to sign up for Saints TV Plus as well. $6 a month or $60 annually. You get exclusive content, the interviews with Lee Montagna, Andrew Bassett, Eric Banner, Jack Sinclair up there. The player ratings that Jake does every week after the game are up there. And a special guest who we can't reveal just yet, but the boys have been fortunate enough to get to interview him or her. It should be interesting, to make sure to check that out. If you're not willing to commit to $60 a year, I get it. We're in a cost of living crisis, very expensive. Give it a try for 1 month. $6. Cup of coffee for some good Saints content. I'm sure it's definitely worth it. Max, do we want to kick into a short-ish review of the Eagles game?
Yeah, just a quick review. We found that the formatting, just a heads up for Sanders, we found that the formatting that what we did last week, where it was more bit of back and forth between Jordan and I in terms of debate, in terms of topics that you guys can get involved with, really worked well. So we're going to stick to that formula. No reason to change it. Small Eagles review. Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, but too predictable again inside 50, too slow a ball movement in the first half, inaccurate disposal use and not aggressive enough with our disposal use in the first half specifically.
Yep, I kind of have to agree with Bem here in saying let's not review the game because that was as Max has said, and I'll sum it up in saying that it was pretty shambolic. At least the first half was pretty awful. I'm not sure whether they got off the plane at Perth Airport or not until halftime. Very very predictable. There was only like one passage of play that sticks out to me where the Saints moved the ball around the edge of the 50 when they couldn't get a clear kick inside there. I can't remember who kicked it, but I know that I think it was Jack Higgins at least that marked it. But yeah, that's what stuck out to me. And the fact that I can only remember us doing that once really speaks volumes about how predictable our movement inside 50, the bomb to King, as we've said many times on this show, and as the boys have said many times on the podcast, does not work. So I'm not sure why we keep doing it. But was there anything positive out of this game, Max, that you can take away from it, or that we can take away from it, rather?
Yeah, there was a couple things. Look, moving back to last week's debate, whether Machida Owens goes in the ruck, does he not? Does he? I think that was pretty 50-50 split between not only Jordan and myself, but the boys on the podcast and fans commenting. Machida Owens nowhere to be seen in the ruck, kicked 4 goals playing forward. So I think that's a really big positive. That when he is he played pretty much a permanent forward role this week, kicks the 4. Really did like Hamanides' game. I thought he had a good bounce back week. Had the 2 goals, 2 very strong marks inside the forward 50. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to bring a little bit of light to what happened on the weekend.
Well, sorry, Max, if I can interrupt you, I'd like to get your opinion on this one, bring a bit of light to it, because guys mentioned Crouch, Marshall, and Machado, but Gresham in particular played well in the third quarter. Now, interesting that you think that, guy, because I didn't. It certainly wasn't a bad game from Jade Gresham. I don't think he was, one of the worst players out there. I thought he was about an average game for him. Not great, but far from awful by any stretch. I didn't think he was a star. So, Max, I'd like to get your opinion on this, on Guy's comment.
Yeah, look, I've just pulled up his stats from the weekend. 21 disposals, 1 goal, 5 tackles. So it looks like Jade Gresham tracking towards his, played a little bit like the Jade Gresham of old. Look, I didn't notice him a whole lot on the TV. Maybe that's just because he was doing a lot of the grunt work and a lot of the handballs, handball receives, things like that. But I didn't notice him a whole lot, but definitely not a bad game. Great to see that he's getting a little bit of love though, especially after the first sort of month of footy that he played, that everyone was on his back about, not performing up to the expectations that we probably expected of him going into the season.
Yep, and just on positives, Max, Paul's made a good point here in the Crouchy career high 17 tackles, second most in Saints history behind Jack Steele for a single game, and I think equal 8th most in an AFL game. That was, I'm not sure why you're guessing, Paul. That was definitely a huge positive in Crouch having a big game. His effort was unwavering and something that can be questioned of other players at several points throughout the season, and maybe also on Sunday Arvo's game, but certainly not from Brad Crouch, especially over the last couple of games. But the game the game on Sunday was terrific from Crouchy.
My apologies, Jordan. Just going back to this comment by Guy, 6 score involvements in the third quarter. Jay Gresham game high, 8 score involvements. So yeah, no. Definitely an underrated, I'd say, game that he's played on the weekend, just going back to that comment before.
Yep. Oh, I didn't know actually he had 6 score involvements in the third. In game high, was it game high 8? Is that
game
right?
High, yeah.
Okay. So I apologise, Guy. It looks like Jade Gresham, might not have passed the eye test, but the stats test, our eyes can be deceiving. So clearly I think he had a good game then. Yeah, look, there's a couple of comments that interest me. Bem's pointing out and I guess what he's probably talking about here is the Brad Hill rundown. Dougal Howard wasn't very didn't communicate it to him. It's not saying you're hot or something like that. But mind you, it was, as someone who went to the game, it was pretty freaking loud at Optus Stadium, and it was a terrific stadium to be at. Just quietly, I thought I had a bit of warning from one of my co-workers that the Eagles fans are like the Collingwood fans of the West, and I actually didn't think that. I thought they were quite polite, the ones that were sitting near us, and they just wanted to see some good footy, and I thought, you got to feel for them, the season that they've had. But anyway, it was pretty loud in the stadium. They were all cheering for the effort that the Eagles were putting in. So, I think it's a bit unfair if we were going to call Dougal Howard out on not telling Brad, or at least, shouting to him that Oscar Allen was right behind him, because he might well not have heard. He might have said it, he might not. Max, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, look, unfortunately it's happened a few too many times, not with Dougal Howard as much, but there's been a lot of hospital passes, especially hospital handballs this year. That's I don't know, that's made me question, just are we giving the ball to the right, like making the right decisions as opposed to talking through it, whether it's communication or whether it's just decision making. I don't know which issue it is, but look, it's happened a fair few times this year, and you sort of shake your head and go, I don't know how they've sort of missed this opportunity to break the game open or do whatever. So yeah, I don't know if it's a communication issue or if it's just decision making, but yeah, it's definitely something that needs to be addressed, because it's happening a little bit too often for my liking, going into games.
Yep. Well, that's probably enough about the Eagles and the game, because I certainly don't want to talk about it a lot. I'm sure, Max, you don't, and I'm sure the viewers have heard enough from the media about the debacle that was the Eagles. So maybe we move on to a couple of, a more general but specific look at some of the facets of our game. And first, Max, I know you wanted to talk about the midfield mix.
Yes, I did want to talk about the midfield mix. Jordan, if you were able to pull up the CBA statistics that I've been able to throw at you. Sorry if it's a bit blurry, Sainers. Bear with us, but this is a website called DFS Australia. Just shows you week to week the CBAs, and if you guys don't know what that stands for, centre bounce attendances by each player for your club. I just want to highlight that Rowan Marshall, Brad Crouch, Jack Steele, 82 or 89 and 82% respectively between the three of them. No one else had cracked 40 or 50%, which is pretty uncommon for a side that has a lot of midfielders, I should say, or at least a lot of guys that outside of Crouch and Steele really should be rotating a lot more through. We see Seb Ross, Jade Gresham with 25%, Jack Sinclair with 39%, Marcus Windhager 36%, and a couple others bounced through there as well. Jordan, what do you think of the midfield rotation right now? Are we getting enough variety through the midfield?
Well, I think that the statistics clearly show, Max, and it was mentioned on the podcast, that we need guys that are able to play different positions, but also different positions other than the midfield, but spend some time in there. Jack Higgins, early in his career at Richmond, part of the reason that he moved to St Kilda was because Dimmer was constantly putting him in the midfield, trying to push him further up the ground, so he's clearly not comfortable playing there. Jack Billings, we know, is probably not the best foot. We've always wanted to see him more so as a small forward, wanted to see him in the forward line rather than in the midfield or even on the wing. So Jade Gresham is really the only one other than Jack Sinclair that can play in the midfield as well as, up forward. That's something that I'd like to see in free agency. Someone, obviously we can't get him because he signed a long-term deal with his current club, but Cameron Zurhaar, someone that can, an absolute ball that goes through the middle and goes up forward. I've had a mental blank at another player I was thinking of that can do something similar in playing in the midfield and up forward. But yeah, more versatility through the midfield, just to give our guys like Steele, Crouch a rest, not have to attend as many, centre bounces. But yeah, Max, what do you think about that?
Yeah, definitely agree. This was something we brought up in our mid-season review. We should go after someone like a Bailey Smith, can play wing, can play in the middle, and can play as a half-forward flanker. Someone like that's exactly what we need. Chris has brought up an interesting thing. I completely missed this on ESEN. on SEN. Brad Crouch and still listed as 10 most ineffective midfielders. I'm guessing that's with their ball usage or where their disposals go, whether it's goals, clangers, whatever it may be. There was one thing that I do agree with in what the CBAs are showing us is that ever since round 9, this is going to be a very unpopular opinion, I know, but someone like Seb Ross since round 9 has had decreasing CBAs for every week. It's gone down every week, and that is something I agree with, because watching the game on the weekend, not to single out a single player, but some of his disposals were quite questionable. Kicks inside 50 that went to pretty much Tom Barras, or he'd get the handball and just slam it on his boot down the line. I'm not sure if Seb Ross is what we want running through our midfield anymore. I think that Ross Lyon needs to hold the midfield a little bit more accountable, and someone like that maybe exiting the midfield, more looking at a wingman role as opposed to a CBA attendee.
If you're looking at ineffective kicking, Max, what about someone like the players that we have had on the wings? You know, Ryan Burns, who covers a lot of ground but is not so good at, you know, kicking as we've seen, and someone like Brad Hill, who's supposed to be the best kick or one of the best kicks in the competition, but you know, we've seen a couple of times in his career that he kicks it probably just a metre or two short of where the player is actually supposed to be. So do you think that's something that we need to prioritise in free agency, getting good kicks, or is it something else?
We sound like a broken record saying that we need good kicks. It feels like we've been saying that the last 3-4 years. But look, yes, you always need good kickers on your team. Someone like an Errol Goulden from Sydney, not that we're going to get him in free agency, but he's such a beautiful kick of the footy. And he plays, high half forward. He plays predominantly on the wing, but you know, can float through the centre bounces as well. But yeah, he's someone that 175 centimeters, very similar to a lot of the guys on our list. Someone like a Ronnie Burns, Brad Hill, that's just elite with the ball. And when he gets the ball, you know, good things are going to happen. What I do like from Brad Hill though is that he won't kick it for the sake of kicking it. He'll always be saying to the forwards, "Lead at me, make it easy for me to kick to you, or make yourself open." And yeah, sometimes he's going to get chased down or run down in a tackle or whatever have you will, but at least he's not going to bomb it straight to the opposition player. I'd rather him, you know, risk a ball up or getting a free kick on, you know, our half forward as opposed to just giving them easy intercept marks.
Yeah, Bet's made a good point. Can we raid some ex-premiership midfield talent so that they have evidence that winning and ultimately victory is possible and have a track record of playing their part in a winning side? I think we tried that, Beth, with Brad Hill. You know, he's won 3 premierships at Hawthorn. I'm not sure whether the influence is still there or was there at all. Someone, obviously, you know, the first player that springs to mind for me in midfield is Marcus Bontempelli. He is obviously not going anywhere. But, you know, you'd love to see him in a St Kilda jumper and what might have been if we selected Jack Billings over him. But, you know, we move on. Who's a premiership player that you would like to see running in the Saints midfield in 2024, Max?
Premiership player. I think there is one person. I know, Jordan, you are probably the complete opposite of what I'm about to say. Andrew Gaff is someone that I think uses the ball amazingly well. Beautiful left boot, plays on the wing, plays in the CBA, plays in the middle. I think he ticks most of the boxes that you're looking after, you know, more of a veteran leader that could come to the club, and who knows, maybe he doesn't want to spend the next 2 years or the remaining parts of his career playing on losing West Coast sides. Maybe he wants to try and make a push at a finals or even a grand final.
Yeah. I mean, it's a somewhat fair point. He is very injury prone, though, and, you know, we've seen that with Dan Hanbury. You know, and what happened in the past with him and Brayshaw just sort of leaves a foul taste in my mouth. I'm not sure that we need any guys that you know, participate in those on-field antics, at least. What I was going to say, and Dale's beaten me to the punch this year, is to try and go for an inside bull midfielder this year in the draft, now that we can we've already got some good youngsters, and we're probably about that stage where we're not like North Melbourne in our rebuild, in which we need the youngsters to be immediately like available and ready to go. We're not so reliant on them. Now, I'm not saying, we're midfielders are full of stars, quite the opposite, except for someone like Brad Crouch. But I think that we can afford to give a bit of development to someone, that we pick up like an inside ball. Someone who plays the way that Cam Zurhaar, he's one of my favourite players in the AFL at the moment, to be perfectly honest, if that wasn't clear already by me bringing him up today and several times, other times on this show. But yeah, if we could draft someone with half of Cam Zurhaar's talent, I'd be very impressed. I'm not sure what'll be available when we're picking. I think we'll be picking anywhere from like 8 to 14, and then you slide down with the bid matching and all that jazz that comes with the AFL draft system. So say we're drafting at 12, do you think that we can land someone who's immediately going to change the game for our team? Probably not, but we've got time to develop them. And yeah, I like Dale's thinking in that we go through the draft, because that's where we struggled in previous years. We just keep trading the picks away and not, focusing on young talent. And look at the young talent that we've picked up: Mitch Owens and Wangani Miller and, Filippo and Win Hager. So it just shows that investing in the draft is a safe and solid option for us.
Yep. Before we just move on, Jordan, after the marketing mix, it is nice that just a quick reminder that, yes, we are being overly, maybe a little bit critical of some of the players running around at St Kilda at the moment, but that's just because we're very passionate supporters. We don't actually think that anyone's a horrible player, and far from it, actually. We just want to remind all Saints fans that please comment and your thoughts and opinions and all that, but let's just try and be respectful as well of all the players and everyone that's running around the club.
Yes, and remember that, these are professional athletes. I get tired walking up one flight of stairs. So, the amount of running, not just the running that they do, but also the work that they put into their body physically is just so impressive. And, if they miss a kick or two, oh well. St Kilda is important to all of us, I'm sure, but, these guys are human, so let's treat them as such. Max, do you think we should trade Kingy for pick 1?
No, let's move on to the next comment, Jordan. Double rucks. I think this was our next sort of point of talking. Double rucks. Definitely think that was a missed opportunity. I agree with Jakey, who said it on the podcast. Bring in Tom Campbell, make Rowan the second ruck and second key forward. See what happens. Why not? There was very, low risk, high reward in a game like that, where, look, even we did our best to try and lose it, but you know what I mean? Like there was I think very little doubt that we were going to lose that game on the weekend, even if we did, experiment a little bit.
Yep, but I think it is a good opportunity this week to bring in someone like Tom Campbell. You've got the Twin Towers in Brodie Grundy and Max Gawn. Someone that's able to tussle with, because being a ruckman is harsh physically. So do you ever give Marshall a rest is very important. Let us know, guys. Bring in Tom Campbell, for this week to battle alongside Roll Marshall with against Max Gawn and Brodie Grundy. Let us know, Sainers, what you think of that. Other than Tom Campbell, though, you've got guys like Max Heath and Isaac Keeler who aren't quite ready yet, but there is one guy, Max, who's making his way through the VFL at the moment, who might be eyeing a return.
I don't think he has been playing VFL just yet. I think he's a test to play VFL this week.
I've misread. Yeah. Apologies.
No stress. Probably one of my favourite guys on the list right now. Him and Caminiti, Jack Hayes. Couldn't it be perfect timing for him to come sort of back into VFL? I don't think he'll come straight back into the AFL side just yet, but maybe get 2-3 games under your belt, see what you can do playing alongside Max Heath. down at Sandy. Let's see what he can do. Hopefully he gains a little bit of that form back that he just sort of shocked everyone in the first 4 or 5 rounds of last year. I think he's exactly what we need right now. Provides, chop out for Max King in the forward line, provides a chop out for Rowan Marshall in the ruck, can play everywhere on the ground. He's a terrific runner. I'm really excited to see him hopefully return to Zebbies this week.
Yep, looks like a couple of people agree with us. Jesse reckons Marshall is wasted, need him to kick goals. And if we're going to continue this bombing inside 50 shit, I think that Rowan Marshall would give us a hand. But obviously, you don't want that bombing inside 50 to continue. Guy says, yes, we definitely need Jewel Ruckman. It's crucial against Melbourne. Paul also, he would, if he was Ross Lyon. Wouldn't we all like to be Ross Lyon? Cordy comes in for Battle, who will get to the injury list, but he is injured and he will miss this week. And yet Campbell in to help out Marshall. Bem says yes, bring in Tom Campbell. So I think it's pretty important to bring in Jewel Rucks, and Beth again says is double down on Rucks. Double down on Rucks, and hopefully we won't get rolled. Am I missing something?
No, I just think double down on the rucks, play 2 rucks, and we won't get rolled out of the midfield when Rowan Marshall gets tired. I think that's just what that comment's talking about. Unless we miss it.
I think Beth's trying to make a pun or something or other. But yeah, it has been a long day, Beth, and I'm not sure that our brains are working at 100% at the moment. Maybe you want to leave it to what they help our young minds out as to what that means. But moving on from double rucks, Max, the forward line dynamic. Do you want to touch on that for a little bit?
Yep. Paul's again 1 step ahead of us tonight, Jordan. Perfect segue in. Can't wait to see Hayes back, another tall forward. Plus Membry. That's the big talking point I wanted the night. Where does Membry fit back into this side? Because an amazing player. Let's say that first and foremost. Dead-eye dick in front of goals. Can mark above his head. Play up high half forward. Where does he sort of fit back into this side? Do we risk going too tall or too one-dimensional with playing 4 key tools? Like, what are your thoughts, Jordan? Where does Membry sort of come back into this forward line?
I think my answer to that is that he doesn't, but rather that he plays more so on the wing. We know that Tim Membry is a fit bloke and obviously can run more than someone like Max King. Max King can, and I think Membry on the wing is a solid option. We've shown in the past Brett Ratton's secret strategy in the last couple of minutes of quarters was to throw Tim Membry down back, which was clearly the worst kept secret in all of the AFL in the 2022 season. But yeah, Membry has shown that he's versatile. He can take marks, not just in the forward line, but on the wing and in defence. And I think moving him to the wing would be a good idea to pair with someone like Mason Wood and give, Mason and Ronnie a rest at some points. And it's looking increasingly, we'll get to the injury report, but it's looking increasingly likely that Dan McKenzie won't be back this season. So I think that there is room for him on the wing. Where does Membry fit into this side? And Paul's brought up a good point that he's still over a month away. But days do go by quickly, so he'll be back here in no time, I'm sure. Do we know what's up with Membry? Why he's not playing, Max?
Oh yeah, sorry, I don't know if I put it in a run sheet. Sorry, I'm just looking through right now. No, I didn't. Jordan, if you want to go through a few comments, I'll pull up exactly what's wrong with him in a second.
Guys asked if we can get Clint Jones in our podcast. We will speak to the powers that be and see. I was actually going to ask that. People keep hacking into our minds recently, Max. Let us know, Saners, who you want to see on the podcast. Not on the podcast. Sorry, who would you like to see on our show this time next week? Who should we bring on as a guest next week? keep it to reasonable names. As much as I'd like to have Nick Riewoldt or Lenny Hayes on the show, I don't think that's realistic at this stage. You never know that's true, but Chris Smith says Tom Cruise. I would like to meet Tom Cruise. Apparently, he's shorter in person than he does look like in the movies. G Train, I would like to have G Train on as well. I'm sure we all would. I don't think that that's attainable at this point in time. Milne could be a good shout. We'll see what we can do with that. We'll speak to Milne's people. Not sure. Maybe a couple other suggestions. Okay, maybe not. But let us know who we should bring on. Max, if you want to, have you got why Tim Membry's not? I think Chris has maybe got it right.
Yeah, knee soreness or some sort of knee injury, listed as 4 to 5 weeks away. Bit of a tough luck with injuries Tim Membry's had this year, along with a lot of our list. There was a comment though. Lukey put it in the chat before. Move King to centre half forward, Membry to full forward. I don't mind that. I just I wonder where the sort of third and fourth tools go. Like, let's say we get Jack Hayes is up for selection in a few weeks. Caminiti's still playing really decent football. Maybe the Campbell Marshall experiment goes well if we see that this weekend. There's just a lot of what ifs, but yeah, I don't mind that right now because we all want to see Kingy move, and I think playing him at centre half forward forces him to move up the ground, take a few marks early in the game up on the wing, get his hands on the footy, get a feel for the pill, and then run backwards in the sort of the second, third quarter where he can really hit his stride. I think that's a really good call, actually, Luke.
Yep, I'm just going through a couple more comments. Joey, the podcast boys, have already had him on. Great bloke though, and yeah, another reminder to check out Saints TV Plus. Jason Graham, also a very good shout. Nicky Winmar, I'd like to have Nicky Winmar on, and that's probably a good segue into what I was going to talk about next. I hope people noticed, or it's hard not to, the wearing of their the Sir Doug Nicholls jerseys this last week, and we'll also be wearing them this week because this week from the 2nd of July, Sunday the 2nd of July to Sunday the 9th of July is, of course, NAIDOC week, celebration of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, the history, the people and their culture. Such an important week for First Nations people, and if there's any First Nations people watching tonight, I would love to learn more about NAIDOC Week and about Indigenous culture. It's clearly such an important part of what it means to be Australian in the 21st century. We're all one. We're all together. I'm not sure where I was going with this, to be honest. So Max, maybe you can bail me out of it.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was NAIDOC week. I was going to ask why we were wearing the Sir Doug Nicholls jumpers, and a few other teams across the league were wearing them as well. But thank you for updating us on that, Jordan. But yeah, not only are they sexy looking jumpers, but it's great time for reflection, great time for pretty much what Jordan said, but just coming out of my mouth now.
Yep. Gilbert McAdam. I'm not sure who this is.
Anyway, I don't know if this is Main Voice himself, but he's made an interesting call. Hazy to come back soon. Wouldn't mind him at centre half back. Ooh. What are your thoughts on that, Jordan?
I think we need a bit more juice and attacking in the forward line. Butler's been, obviously they're not comparable players, but Butler's been good. Jack Higgins lacking a bit of spark, bit of X factor at the moment. We're not kicking goals, to be honest. We're really struggling inside the forward 50. Joycey, if Hayes was to come back, I'd really like to see him in the forward line. And obviously, let us know how you're going with the wisdom teeth that have been taking out, how you're tracking your recovery, mate. Malcolm Blight, Chris reckons get Naz on. Nicky Dowell would be cool. Yep, Chris also reckons, Beth, that Nick Dowell would be good. Obviously coaching the Saints AFLW side at the moment. Carl Dietrich. Gilbert McAdam kicked. Oh, well, that's showing my ignorance. Gilbert McAdam kicked 5 goals in the famous Nicky Winmar game. Yep, probably a little bit deserving of the last sentence there. Gilbert
Sorry,
is one
Jordan.
Aboriginal man that played with Winmar on that famous day.
Sorry, Jordan. Oh, there is a lot of Gilly comments. There is a great video. It would have been released about 11 years ago. If you just type up Gilbert McAdam, I think it's something like Recollection Week or Recollection. The Saints made.
Reconciliation Week.
No, it's not. It's not Reconciliation Week. It was a thing that the Saints used to do, I don't know, 10, 11 years ago on their YouTube channel. They'd bring in old players to tell stories about some famous games at the club. There's one really good one with Gilbert McAdam, goes for about 8 minutes, I think. Would highly recommend watching that. Yeah, if you just type in Gilbert McAdam St Kilda, it should be one of the first videos that pop up.
I love how you remember that, but didn't remember like who he was.
Yeah, I know. Well, the second I see the comment that he's kicked 5, that's instantly the video I remember of now. Yeah, he talks through that game and what it meant to be Aboriginal back in the 90s, playing AFL football and alongside Nicky Winmar. Yeah, that's probably a nice way to wrap up the week that the week Australia is going to be celebrating.
All right, well, let's move on to the finals race. Obviously, certainly a tight battle between 4th and, was it like 15th? Whoever's 15th at the moment. I think it's Richmond at this point, but it's constantly changing. I think it's 6 points or something separates the 4th place Melbourne from 15th place Richmond. I'm not too sure, but I know it's definitely close. What does St Kilda need to make the top 8? How many wins do we need? Well, we've got 9 wins at the moment. It is 9 wins, isn't it?
You would be correct on that, Jordan. It is 9 wins.
Okay, so 9 wins. You would think that 13 wins and a good percentage or 14 makes finals. Well, you would have thought that at the start of the year. Maybe now that the competition is so even, maybe 13 and a bang average percentage, which is what we'll finish with. We definitely, we're not gonna sugarcoat it. We definitely blundered a big chance to build percentage, and the Essendon of the easiest run home. The Bulldogs are yet to play West Coast. Adelaide get to play them again. Sydney, Richmond, Carlton, and Geelong's percentage are irrelevant because they'll finish in the unlikely. Well, unless they, it's unlikely they'll draw against someone else again. But their percentages are relevant. It's not a distinguishing factor because they've drawn, so they'll have 2 points from their games. But yeah, we've squandered a big opportunity to build percentage, so we need to grab all the wins we've got. We've got Melbourne, we've got Gold Coast, Hawthorn, North, Carlton, Richmond, Brisbane at the Gabba, Geelong. I think that's it. I think it needs to be 4 wins from those. So where do the wins come from, Max?
Hopefully we start off getting a win against Melbourne. I think that'd be a real good test coming out of West Coast. Maybe faced a little bit of scrutiny. Yes, we won, but maybe not in the manner that a lot of Saints fans or experts across the AFL stratosphere would have anticipated. More realistically, though, I think I'm just pulling out the fixture now. We beat the Suns, beat North, beat Hawthorn. If we can bank in those 3 wins, that gets us to 12, and it gets us a little bit of a run on, bit of confidence, maybe hopefully a bit of form back. Then we go into Carlton and Richmond, where it's under the roof at Marvel Stadium, both games, and anything's possible from there. If you get 3 wins in a row, club's filling up and about. I think confidence is something that we need to take into account as well. If we just look at the games at face value, they may not look as obtainable as you may be putting them as a collective month of football or whatever have you will.
Yep. I think Max, Beth is talking about your point about confidence. Does anyone else think this is a mental or psychological mentality of being defeat weary and sort of in a bad space collectively? Yeah, I think that, you get a couple of losses, you get on a bit of a roll. We've certainly been stuck in a rut, with the exception of the Sydney game, which was an impressive win. Since really the Port Adelaide loss, we haven't been playing good footy. Our confidence is definitely low. Psychologically, I'm not a psychologist, but maybe there's something going on in the noggins of the Saints boys, in terms of their confidence. And I guess, a self-belief in their ability to win games and to win big at that. Certainly don't win big when we do win games. But yeah, it's definitely a confidence thing, Max. You've made up a really good point. In the words of the great Dom Toretto, it doesn't matter whether you win by an inch or a mile, a winning is winning. Dom Toretto, I don't think, has ever worried about percentage in an AFL finals race, unfortunately. But it is a good quote, Chris, that, for those who are a bit pessimistic like myself about the Eagles' loss, it's a good reminder. A win is a win. Maybe even though the glass is probably half empty at this stage, or maybe even, closer to empty than just half empty, you got to see the brighter side of things. So yes, 4 points is 4 points. We bank that, and it's an important step in our finals race. Paul reckons definitely a disconnect within the group currently. Question is, can we turn it around to make finals? Certainly hope so. Yeah, there's probably a bit of selfishness. People playing bit of selfish footy, Max, don't you think, within the team?
Yeah, I'm not sure specifically if it's selfishness or unsureness or whatever it is. Definitely, there's a clear disconnect between each of the three lines. But I think Ross Lyon has been to finals. He's made it to grand finals. We all know he's capable of getting a group united at the right time during a season. He did it with Freo. He's done it with the early days at St Kilda. I'm not worried that we're not going to find form, or we're not going to show glimpses of what we can do in the last part of the season. I think it's just doing it for more games than not now, and really just trying to string a month of good football together. Because you string a month of good football together, even if it's 2 weeks, and that third week comes a bit easier, then the fourth week's a bit easier than that. And we hopefully break open the rest of the season. So we want that to ideally start on Saturday against Melbourne. And even if we win, lose, or draw, we just want to see better ball movement, more attacking football. Everyone, or all 22 plus the Medi sub, so 23 players, are invested in winning the game or in doing their absolute best to put the Saints in a better position than when they, I guess, sort of found it.
Yep, that's some good points there. But we might move on to a bit of an injury update, Max. What can you tell us about St Kilda's injury list that I'm just bringing up on screen right now?
Yep. So we've got Battle concussion, so he'll miss a week. Bytel, abdominal strain, so he's going to probably miss another week or two. Mackenzie calf strain, looking more likely than not that he'll miss the rest of the season. At least if he is back, he's most likely going to play VFL, not play AFL footy. Big news, though, Hunter Clark is a test to come back into the side this week. Jack Hayes a test, more likely to play VFL, as we said, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. Maybe he comes straight back into the AFL if he passes his test. Brad Hill a test on that MCL, and Seb Ross, I believe, a test for his ankle.
Yep, so we've had a couple of comments about whether Josh Battle will play this week. Doesn't look like it at this stage. Sorry, just trying to pull that down. John's brought up an interesting point. Is there something between Steele and Lyon? I don't think so. I think maybe there's just a bit of a learning curve to learn. People forget that St Kilda weren't really that good in 07 in Ross Lyon's first year. We were still hurting from 2004 and 2005. Maybe back then people were saying there was a bit of disconnect between the players and the coaches. So I don't think there is a bit of tension or anything there really. Max, what do you think?
I don't think there's definitely hasn't seemed to be a dynamic between Steele and Lyon that I've noticed. Nothing bad in particular. I think the beauty of having a coach like Ross Lyon, he's so upfront to the media, and he speaks so well to the media. I mean, helps having a media background post coaching, or in between coaching stints. But I think Ross Lyon's been a pretty open book this year. I think maybe next year and the year after that, may see him go back to his old ways where he's a bit more reserved, but what have you will. But yeah, I don't think there's anything or drama between Ross Lyon and Jack Steele. I just think that if anything, Ross might give him a spray this week because if you're going to kick a donkey up the arse, you got to start at the head.
Yep, that's a very interesting quote there. I'm not sure where you pulled that one from, Max. We'll move on to the VFL. Max, who do you think could return from the VFL? Who's a chance at senior selection?
Zach, so look, we said this last week. We thought Jack Billings was an absolute lock-in for playing against the Eagles. Marshy made a good point that he probably didn't want to. We didn't probably want to make him travel all the way to WA and back. That is a really strenuous trip, Jordan, as I'm sure you have now experienced that, I guess.
Yep, I'm bloody knackered, to be honest with you. Still getting over the time difference, but yeah, probably didn't want to take the risk with him, moving interstate and to not play. So we know that Zach Jones had 35 disposals, 7 tackles and a goal over the weekend. Highmore, 22 disposals, 6 tackles. Marshy brought up the point that maybe he could be brought back in. I think Marshy also said on the podcast that he doesn't remember Tom Highmore having a bad or a particularly poor game at AFL level. And with the greatest of respect to Marshy, I'd like to remind him of the Fremantle game in round 17 last year where Tom Highmore was fairly disappointing.
You got to do Tom Highmore like that.
It was more doing Marshy like that, but credit where credit's due. I'm all the same. Tall poppy syndrome is clearly alive and well in Australia at the moment. Who else played well at the VFL level, Max?
So Cordy, 17 disposals, 7 marks. Max Heath just probably won't be selected, but definitely worth noting that he had 44 hitouts. Absolutely amazing. And then 12 disposals and a goal. So he was just about everywhere for the Zebbies on the weekend. Jack Billings as well, 15 disposals, 1 goal. Maybe he's also one to be brought back in. Chris reckons a big change this week. I reckon too. He reckons Jones, Billings, D-Mac and Highmore. Oh, actually, I don't think D-Mac will be playing, as we just mentioned that he is a TBC for the rest of the year. But Jones, Billings and Highmore potentially to return. Did Perez play VFL? I don't believe so. I believe he flew over to WA with the team. Sorry, just reading through a lot more comments. Sainers, let us know who you think will get brought in back into the side this season. This week. John reckons Marshall will need some help, so alluding to a Tom Campbell infusion into the ruck. What do you think, Jordan? Anyone that's really jumping out that's playing VFL that probably deserves to get a crack at AFL level?
The one player that's screaming out to me, Max, is Zach Jones. We need a bit of grunt and a bit of, in your face. Melbourne, they're a very arrogant team. They don't like it when you get in their face and bring it up to them. We've seen that with Ed Langdon last year when he was making the comments about Collingwood being they're all duck and no dinner. With the exception of Jack Ginnivan, maybe that's true. But certainly Collingwood went and bodied him at the very first bounce last year, and that's something that I'd like Zach Jones to do. Not necessarily on Ed Langdon, but maybe someone like Oliver if he plays, and we'll get into that, or Petrarca or Viney. For me, I would bring in Zach Jones. Who would I take out? It's interesting. So I think Highmore comes in for Josh Battle. I think that's a like-for-like replacement. I think that's fair enough. If Brad Hill doesn't play, I would like to see JB in. I think it's either JB or Tom Campbell for the Brad Hill spot if he doesn't play. If Brad's fit, then play him. I think he's better than both better option than Tom Campbell and oh my god, Jack Billings. Sorry, mental blank. It's been a long day, been a long season actually. Yeah, who comes out for Zach Jones though? Maybe someone like Ryan Burns, or maybe even you give someone like, dare I say, Jack Higgins a rest?
Yeah, I don't know. Dale reckons Seb Ross out, Jones in. Just about everyone's agreeing that Jones should come in. I'm more in line with Paul because for whatever reason, Paul is inside my brain tonight. I'm more of the line of Jones back in, Cordy back in for Battle, so I'm a little bit different to you, Jordan there, and Campbell back in.
Yeah, I think you reckon what Paul's saying is that I think that Highmore should be in for Josh Battle, but you reckon Cordy over Highmore.
Yeah, I just think that the Melbourne forward line is a little bit in shambles. It's been highlighted over and over again by A lot of experts on Footy Classified, SCN, all those sorts of shows. Look,
would you really call Kane Corns a footy expert? I'm not even sure he's a expert commentator. I'm not sure how some of these people get jobs, to be honest. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah, but just wanted to jump in and say that. But yeah, continue.
That's all right. No, so yeah, I reckon someone like a Jacob Van Ruin, and let's say they bring back Ben Brown or whoever it is. Look, you put Dougal Howard, you put Cordy on. Let's see how Dougal Howard performs with a bigger body in Cordy, someone that could probably take a little bit of the stress off of Dougal Howard. Not as much as a genuine fullback would, but nonetheless, that's what we've got right now. Let Wilkie play as more of a free roaming intercept marker, similar to what a Jake Lever is going to do against us. I saw a comment about somewhere. Sorry, it was about Max King. I can't find it now. It must have gone through the wickets there. But someone's saying Max King in the ruck instead of bringing Tom Campbell in. Not sure about that because you don't put Ferraris through a tractor field. But I do like Max King playing higher up the ground, and I'd love to see Max King's knees end up on the shoulders of Stephen May. That was the comment I was looking for. Thank you, Jordan.
You are most certainly welcome, Max. Well, let's move on from our players and maybe talk a little bit about the Melbourne injuries. Bailey Fritsch was announced today, out for 2 months with a foot injury. Oliver is potentially returning from a hamstring injury, and with the greatest of respect to Clayton Oliver, I really hope he doesn't because he is a terrific player and will certainly tear us a new one. I think the Sad Sainer posted an Instagram reel predicting that Clayton Oliver, Jack Viney, Christian Petrarca and Max Gorm will get 90 clearances in the game between them if they all play against St Kilda, which could very well happen because our clearance game is to put it politely a bit subpar at the moment. But yeah, and Tom McDonald also 5. I'm not sure if that's a new injury. I haven't really been following Melbourne closely, to be honest. But he's out for 4 to 6 weeks with an ankle injury. So Max, who would be the most impactful Demons on the field? Who are the players to watch on Saturday night that aren't wearing red, black, and white?
Look, there's so many of them. I think if Oliver
other than the umpires, sorry.
Yeah. I think if Oliver comes back, he's an absolute pig. That's why they call him Piggy. Christian Petrarca goes forward, kicks goals. I don't think he's as good as everyone reckons he is. Just because he doesn't tackle, he does not like to run back into the defensive 50 and help out. He only likes to run forward. I think someone like Jack Viney, I called it in our little thread with Jakey Jordan. Jack Viney's probably been the best midfielder at Melbourne the last 6 weeks, definitely the last month of footy that they've played. But yeah, I think someone like Jack Viney, he's someone that loves the physical game, loves getting in and under. He's very similar to a Tom Liberatore, both left boots, and yeah, they love getting the contested ball and exploiting from stoppage.
Yep. And Stephen May is, I think, the biggest problem. Jesse Brown, their back line, is our worry. May, unfortunately, might hit us hard. Yeah. We start intercept defenders in particular always have good games against St Kilda, particularly this season. We've seen Darcy Moore have a good game. Harris Andrews, James Sicily, and to an extent, guys like Tom Barras and what's his name? Shannon Hearn have decent games against St Kilda last weekend. But yeah, we do need to worry about Stephen May, terrific intercept defender. He's someone that we should, not kick it to. He doesn't wear red, white, and black, and I hope the Saints boys recognise that on Saturday night. The 2 big issues for the Demons is their set shot and goal accuracy. We've seen it last week that cost them the game dearly. I think they had 90 inside 50s, or maybe not 90. I think it was in the 70s against GWS and still lost. Their set shot kicking was poor, and it almost cost them game against Collingwood on the King's birthday match a couple of weeks ago. But also delivering the footy inside 50 is a big concern for them. Like Max said, a lot of expert commentators have been talking about Melbourne's ineffectiveness in delivering the ball inside 50. But that's similar to us. We tend to struggle with that. So hopefully Melbourne haven't brought their kicking boots and maybe miss a few shots. But to help them miss a few shots, we've got to show up to the game, people. Big game. Not often you get a top 5 clash, as was referenced on the podcast. I don't think I've ever heard anyone refer to a top 5 in the AFL before. Certainly the top 4. But please show up to the game. Sarah made a joke on the podcast about Melbourne fans, the traditional, they're all at the Snow. I think there might be a few Saints fans living on, in the Bayside area, maybe have gone off to Europe, gone to Paris and Rome and London and, too busy, worrying about Europe rather than Saints footy. So please get down to the game. We will, of course, be there. Not sure if the social club is running this week. That's a TBD on that one. But yeah, please come to the game. 30,000. Please. The trains are shit. We know that. But somehow just find a way, whether you're carpooling, whether you catch a different tram and a tram or a bus, plus a train, if you put in the effort, then they will put in the effort. Maybe it's not felt like that way for the past 57 years. But crowd, we remember my rant from a couple of weeks ago when I talked about Collingwood and their fans showing up and them acting as the 19th man on the field. It really does make an impact. As someone who, has played a bit of sport in my life, I know that when the crowd gets involved, it certainly, gives you an extra gear. So let's give them an extra gear to go to because Lord knows we will need it for this game. Max, do you want to drop some score predictions for us? And obviously, Sainers, let us know your score predictions in the comments.
Yeah, sorry, just on that, whoever wins gets 4th, as Chris has mentioned. So, yeah, no excuses not to rock up. Unfortunately, Jordan, I think you've just sort of called me out when you were talking about everyone going to Europe and I don't know, everywhere else that's not Melbourne. I unfortunately won't be at the game. I'm going to be soaking up the sun in Fiji. So, yeah, you might get a bit of a different face. I think on the thread that Sarah might be joining Jordan next week. That's a bit of a TBD, but everyone seemed to love Sarah on the podcast, and why wouldn't you? She was awesome. So yeah, maybe you might see her face alongside Jordan's next week, or what have you will. Paul reckons Saints by 9. John reckons best case St Kilda 73, Melbourne 59. I'm gonna go something a little bit different, Jordan. I reckon I'm not going to predict a win or a loss. I'm just going to say whatever the outcome of the game is, it's going to be 12 points, whether Saints win by 12 or Melbourne win by 12. Neither team scores above 80 points is my big prediction.
That's very funny because on the run sheet, when you just said I'm not going to predict a win or a loss, I thought, he's going to take my idea here. I've gone St Kilda 77, Melbourne 77, and yes, neither team scores over 80. We know that St Kilda are a very defensive team. We've been leaking goals recently. Snakes out the cage. We're dripping like a leaky faucet. So maybe they will score over 80. Hopefully not. But yeah, I reckon St Kilda 77, Melbourne 77. I would take a draw, to be honest with you. I think that's a good result for us because I'm a bit pessimistic. Like Shorts, Melbourne by 22, unfortunately. Guy also, Melbourne by 15 points. Jesse, Saints by 22. Chris, a bit more optimistic, turning the corner a bit here, Saints by 4 goals. Dale, if this happens, I will run onto Marvel and do a backflip. But it's got to be. What?
You'll give him a big kiss.
I'll give him a big kiss. I was going to say I'll run on and do a naked backflip onto Marvel, but it's got to be St Kilda winning by exactly 52 points. We are going to hammer them. Then you've heard it here. Yes, Chris, I do hopefully we do smash them though, obviously. Maybe not by 52 points. I'll take 51 or 53 after what I just said. Jesse, yes, 96 to 74. Dale, 6-point win, very low scoring game. I'm sure a lot of people will criticise St Kilda if that's the final score because, they always find a way to criticise us in the media. 40 points, Chris reckons. Patience is laughing, I think, at my comments about backflipping at Marvel naked.
Chris reckons
I'll
he'll
pay
pay.
your fine. Yes, thank you, Chris. I'll take that.
Sorry, Jordan. I just want to pull up one more comment. There was a bit of a debate. Sorry, we didn't bring it up on screen before. Just about who Owens plays on, whether it's Lever or May, and King, whether he gets Lever or May. A few of you guys were sharing your thoughts, which is awesome to see. Seymour, I reckon, sums it up quite well. Owen should just play his footy. Who cares who's chasing him? Kid is a star and our future. So long as he's not in the ruck, Jordan, I know bringing back that debate. I'm happy as long as he's in the forward line or rotating through the midfield. He should have a big game. Back up his I don't know, rising star form this season.
Yep. Okay. What's your one word, Max? Have you got Beth's word wheel ready?
Sorry, just pulling up some more pulling up some more comments. Dale reckons Max King 5 goals, 5 points. That'd be unreal. John reckons just wants to show up with a bit of attitude and be competitive. I think most Saints will be pretty happy if we just show a lot of fight for 4 quarters. We do all the right things. Whether it shows up on the scoreboard or not is a different issue. If we show up, we tackle, we lay pressure, we keep the ball locked inside our forward half of the ground, you're going to put on scores eventually. So if you do the right things and don't worry about kicking goals as much, then I think that's only destined for a win then.
Chris, I really hope this doesn't happen. I really don't want to see Max King out for a couple of weeks. Chris reckons memorable. Max, my word is tense. I'm very, very tense for this game. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm still very on edge, as you will, for the result of this game, because it is certainly going to be a big one. I think patience is going with the word. It's kind of funny. I'm tired of the boys second guessing. Maybe you're lacking a little bit of patience there. If we fight, we will be okay. Daring, that's a good word, Guy. Actually, I might steal that next week. Dale reckons only 3 goals will be kicked in the first half. That'll be interesting if it's just St Kilda or St Kilda and Melbourne. That'll be certainly a. You might have to bring a pillow and a nightlight if there's only 3 goals kicked in the first half. Paul says we must start well. Travelling back from Perth will die in the last quarter. But Max, what is your word?
My word is physical. I just want it to be a physical contest. I want to get in and under Melbourne's skin. As we've sort of alluded to, if we tackle, we put pressure on, keep the ball trapped in our forward half of the ground as much as possible. Really use Wilkie. Jimmy Webster played really well on the weekend. Someone like Lamstock and Naz, get those balls back inside forward 50 as fast as possible. I reckon we'll be. Sorry, getting a bit excited here. We'll give every chance at winning that game if we just get the sort of the 3 principles that Ross Lyon has sort of wanted to staple at our club, being pressure, tackling, and locking the ball inside our forward half of the ground. We'll give Melbourne every right to have a bit of a scare.
Max, who's the player to have a big game?
As I just mentioned before, I reckon Owens to back it up again. Don't know how many goals he'll kick, but I just reckon he's work around the ground. He's going to be the one inside our forward 50 that brings the tackle, the second follow-up acts, the handballs, the doing all the grunt work, just because he can do everything, can't he?
Yeah, I've heard that Mitch Owens can also walk on water. The player to have a big game for me is Mason Mahogany Wood. I think that he's got a big matchup, maybe not direct matchup as you will in terms physically, but on his opposing wing is Ed Langdon, who's a fantastic winger. Just seems to find the ball and use it very well. Is obviously one of the best runners in the game. So it'd be interesting to see if Mason can cover as much, maybe not as much ground, but something close to Ed Langdon. That'll be a matchup that I'm looking forward to seeing. And he's been all right, Mason. I wouldn't say he's been out of form. He's been quieter than the first 4 rounds of the year that he's had. So if he returns to that round 1 to 4 form, then we're in for a big night. Chris reckons Butler. Guy reckons Sharman. That's a good one. I would have liked to say Sharman was actually going to be my other one. Chris reckons Butler will get 3. Eugene thinks we'll win. I bloody hope so. Windy will have 42 disposables. He's going to have 42 disposable cameras in the game. Water moves out of. That's true. Mitch actually gives the teacher homework. I've heard. Mitch tells his parent. Mitch, when he was younger, told his parents when it was bedtime, not the other way around.
Jordan, I heard Moses. I heard Moses parted the seas for Machito. Oh, well, you didn't that one. Okay. Move to some more comments then.
Butler.
Disposables. A lot of people reckon Butler. Peter reckons or agrees with Guy. Sharman should be named in the first 22. Yeah, and on that note, I don't think any more comments are sort of streaming through anymore. Jordan and I have lost the plot as well a little bit in the last sort of 10 minutes. So on that note, Sainers, we might just leave it there. Just a reminder, check out the potty, Jake's other weekly videos if you haven't already.
Yep. One final comment because I like this one. A snake bit Machito and many hours later the snake died. As always, thank you guys for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday night and have a great week.
Go the Sainers.
See you guys next time.